Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reaction series, and specifically the Arsenal transfer news show. I hope you're doing good. I hope you had a fantastic Christmas yesterday. Good evening, good morning, good day, wherever you are in the world. To everybody in the chat box, we've got Kaiser, we've got Stevie, we've got Manu, Paul, Matt G, Fun Trick, we've got Paul Murphy, Bracket Busters, we've got Jose, Joel, the Onyx Lens, John Nat, Stephen Foot, Steve Coots, Emmanuel, Stephen Richards, John G, and Ife as well, and so many more of you. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. It's always a pleasure to have you join us, and it's great to see so many of you waking up early on Boxing Day to continue. Regarding kind of Christmas gifts and stuff like that, I don't really know what the family was trying to say when they bought me this t-shirt, which is pretty ridiculous, but maybe they're saying I watch far too much football. They probably have a point. Let us know in the chat box how your Christmas was, how it got on. Hope you had a fantastic one if you indeed did celebrate it. Whilst we're carrying on through with the transfer news, of course, Arsenal is playing Norwich City today. There will be a reaction to that around 9 o'clock UK time this evening, so do make sure you got those notifications turned on so you don't miss it. We also hit a massive Christmas present, was hitting 6,000 subscribers over on the Arsenal Way, which is a brilliant achievement considering we started the channel less than 6 months ago over in August, and we've hit 6,000 subs, and a lot of that is to do with the support from you guys. I know that a lot of you have really kind of followed me over there and followed the stuff that we've been getting on, so thank you for your continued support. I know a lot of you tune into the shows even when I'm not there, which is great as well, and showing support to the whole family over at the Arsenal Way is something that we're very proud of, and we hope that you continue to enjoy the content. There'll be a reaction. I'll be live on the channel pretty much straight after the Norwich game. And of course, we'll do our own reaction over here around 9 o'clock when I finish my shift today. Yes, working on Boxing Day. It's the world of football. But make sure you do follow us over there, and you can see our reaction after the game. But let's crack on with the story of the day, and that was Aubameyang broke his silence, as you may have seen plenty of headlines come out with yesterday, putting a cryptic hashtag on a Christmas post, obviously. We wouldn't expect any less. Family first. You can't really disagree with the point. I get it. Could have been left off. I could have just been like "Merry Christmas, everybody," and not leaving any kind of undertone on the post. And then Arsenal actually used the photo on their own Twitter feeds of a collection of players that they've got that have said "Happy birthday, Merry Christmas" on their Insta feed. So interesting, but I think that we're all in agreement that he's probably going to leave in January. Although saying that, reports did emerge over the last 48 hours or so that Juventus, who were one of the teams that were interested in Aubameyang, are supposedly a little bit cautious, reluctant, nervous about moving ahead with a deal for Aubameyang, unsurprisingly so. Fingers crossed, we see plenty of teams with greater interest in the January window, and we can sort something out, because his future at Arsenal does appear quite unlikely at this stage. Moving on to our next story, Ainsley Maitland-Niles. Now, this story came up late on Christmas Eve. Of course, we didn't have a show yesterday morning, so we didn't get a chance to cover it, and I know a lot of you have probably seen this already. But Ainsley Maitland-Niles has been linked with a move to Roma. Jose Mourinho supposedly has opened talks with Arsenal about a possible deal to sign the England international on loan in January. We know that Roma were previously linked with Mainsley. I think they were linked with Mainsley a couple of years ago. It was only a very loose link. Nothing ever came of it, obviously, but it was only a very loose link. And then last summer, we saw Granit Xhaka linked with the move to Roma. They want a midfielder. They've been looking for a midfielder, and they didn't really strengthen that area massively in the summer window, and they're still looking to bring someone in. They've enjoyed success in the English market through Tammy Abraham and seeing what he's done this season in Serie A. So Jose Mourinho must reckon that he can get more from Ainsley Maitland-Niles as well. So we'll have to we'll be very intrigued to see if this move takes place. If it does, I do get the feeling that Arsenal can't really afford not to go into the market and sign a midfielder, because of the African Cup of Nations, we'd be left with just Lokonga and Granit Xhaka as our only senior options. Partey and El Nini would be off, and Mainsley would have been sold to Roma. So surely, if that's the case, something has to give, something has to change. And speaking of possible deals being done, Mikel Arteta has had some words quoted on the transfer market. He was asked about the situation, and he says if you can tweak what you need to in that period, which is not easy, it would be really helpful. We are working on that to see the necessities we can have and whether we can find the right solutions to that, speaking regarding possible signings in the January window. It opens up the idea that Arsenal could sign someone permanently. It's not just, a simple response of, no, we're not really looking to do anything, or it's going to be very unlikely for us to do anything. It's very open. They are working. They are looking at possible options. Him and Edu, Richard Garlick, the scouts, the recruitment team working in harmony, you hope, to try and sort out some kind of move. And if we think about Mainsley leaving, surely a midfielder, at least in the short term, makes plenty of sense. Does a striker happen? It would, for me, depend on the futures of Eddie Nketiah. There are 3 clubs that we know of that are interested. We've got Crystal Palace, we've got Brighton, and West Ham are all said to be interested in Eddie Nketiah. If he leaves in January, if Balogun goes on loan, if Aubameyang situation isn't sorted out, that would leave us with just Lacazette. And with the midfield, as I say, Partey and El-Neni gone, Mainsley could leave. That would leave us with just Xhaka and Lokonga. Surely a striker and midfield additions have to be made without leaving Arsenal ridiculously thin. Speaking of, though, possible coverage, there was images of Charlie Patino training with the Arsenal first team over the Christmas period, which was great to see. He has been training with the Arsenal first team for some time, so it's not exactly like a clue that he could be included in the squad today or in the coming weeks. But what I would say is the fact that we've got players of that quality coming through that are regularly training with the first team, it does mean that you've got that hope that there's some depth there, and the strength of those depth is going to come through, and maybe we'll see some promotion to the first team. We will have to wait and see. Our final story, though, is on a possible striker target, and ESPN have reported that, again, Arsenal remain interested in Moroccan and Sevilla striker Youssef En-Nesyri. He's a player that I like a lot. He has suffered with an injury this season, which has kept him out of the fold for a little bit. In fact, I think he's only just come back in their recent game against Barcelona, came on for the last 20 minutes or so, and that's the first time he's played in a fair few games. So his statistics don't look amazing this season because he's been suffering with this continuous injury. He is coming back, though, so now in the new year, it will be intriguing how he responds, how he gets back into form after this injury. I would be a little bit averse maybe to pushing the boat out to sign him in January, considering the injury that he's just suffered. I want to kind of see how he comes back from that. But he was doing fantastically well before he suffered it. He was certainly the reason why Sevilla were in a title race at the start and at the end of last season. Sevilla, again, are up there this season, looking to push to try and get as high up the La Liga table as possible. And his return will definitely be part of a huge help towards that. He could be a cheaper option to the likes of Vlahovic or Dominic Calvert-Lewin, depending on how much Arsenal would like to spend. But we will have to wait and see if this is a deal that Arsenal can get done. And that is all of the transfer news over the last 48 hours. As you can imagine, there's not been loads, it being Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Please do throw your questions into the chat box, because I'll be spending another 10 minutes or so going through as many of those as possible. So let's get to them. Okay, let's jump into the chat box. I think I saw Matt G asked the question, what was the injury that he suffered? I can tell you. Give me 1 second. Injury history for Youssef En-Nesyri. It just says a muscle injury that he missed the last 10 games. To be fair, that is his first injury since 2018-19. He's not a player that's been regularly injured. He suffered an injury before that in 16-17. He's not a player that tends to get injured all that often. Whether this begins kind of a start of some injuries, I don't know. But this is his first injury where he's missed like a real period of games, Matt. So he's not someone that you particularly need to be concerned about injuries, unless, of course, this one is further, which would be a bit of a shame. We'll see how it goes. Henry says, what is it with Stupid and Roma saying how skint they are, but we know they paid plenty on Tammy. Go and do one, Jose. Look, I think that clubs obviously use tactics in the market to try and get themselves a better deal. We're aware of the fact that they tried to lowball Arsenal with the Granit Xhaka situation in the summer. Clubs aren't going to tell you how much they've got. As soon as they do, they're at a weaker point through negotiations. They'll try and keep that as secret as feasibly possible. Even Arsenal do it. Arsenal do it loads. So you can't be expecting that other clubs aren't going to try the same tactic again. Abe says, what are your thoughts on Tammy Abraham? He scored 12 goals already, although 6 were in the Conference League, but he looks much more of a rounder player. Look, he's someone in the summer that when we were discussing him, I said I would have been more open to him being signed than I know a lot of other people were. People kind of dismissed Tammy Abraham almost immediately because obviously he wasn't starting for Chelsea. But when you got Timo Werner that they spent 50 million quid on, and then Lukaku that they spent 100 million quid on, it's not really surprising. And I kind of viewed Abraham as a bit of a project piece, someone that could certainly improve. And I think that he is improving. His finishing still needs to get better. He does miss too many chances for me when I've watched him. But I think that he could be a player that explodes onto the European scene and maybe even the Premier League scene were he to return. So if Arsenal were linked with a move to him, it wouldn't discourage me, is what I would say. It wouldn't discourage me at all. Steve says, hi, Tom. Is Tommy available for tonight? We've still heard nothing concrete as far as I'm aware. I mean, I'll go onto the Arsenal website just now to check if I haven't missed anything. Pictures of training was released. Have we seen any pictures of Tomiyasu in training? I'm just scrolling through. Ben White and Balogun, En-Nesyri, Tavares, Ben White and Gabriel, Partey, Smith Rowe, Patino and Lacazette, Xhaka, Martinelli. Smith Rowe is available, it seems, as is Martinelli, as we've already said. Tavares, Lacazette, Ben White. I'm not seeing any images of Tomiyasu at the moment, which is a little bit of a concern. Thankfully, we are playing Norwich. There's no pictures of him. I didn't see any pictures of Martin Ødegaard's either, which is, again, another concern, not seeing either Ødegaard or Tomiyasu in the team. It's less so Ødegaard. We know that Smith Rowe can come straight into the fold, but it's just obviously a bit frustrating when you know that you've got a player that you really need in your team and he's not there. So that's a bit of a shame if Tomiyasu isn't indeed available, but there's been no images of him training. Neither so Ødegaard too. John says, sorry, Tom, just tuning in now, so not sure it's been discussed, but is Tomiyasu available for the game? Yes, I should read questions before I ask them. I hope that I've answered your question now, John. The answer is we don't really know, but the signs aren't looking good from the training photos that have been released. Pradbuddha says, how long is Maitland-Niles' contract till? I think it's until 2023. Let's have a quick check how long Maitland-Niles is contracted at Arsenal to. He's to 2023. So at the end of this season, he'll have a year left on his deal. And Mandeep says, Tom, do you think Arteta's comments are more aligned towards getting a striker in January than a midfielder, since we have the numbers in the midfield already? I don't think we do, Amandeep. We have numbers in regards to how many are available, but quality and depth. And then when you think that we're losing El-Neni and Partey, that Maitland-Niles could leave, there are a number of things that could stop us from signing players in either position. So I can't definitively say whether or not it's striker or midfield. It could be very much either. Nathan, thank you so much, mate, for the donation. That's really, really kind of you. Hi, Tom. If Arteta doesn't make top 4, should we sack him? Personally, I don't know, but we need to keep our standards high. Merry Christmas to you. I've said from the start of the season that my expectation was top 6. If he didn't get top 6, he has to go. If he doesn't get top 4, but still gets 5th or 6th place, look, I think we've progressed forwards from last year. We were back-to-back 8th place finishes. We've improved the team. There are 4 teams, in my opinion, that have better squads than Arsenal: Man United, Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea. There are other teams that are pushing, obviously, for that top 4 place. If we weren't to get top 4, it's not a sackable offence. But if we were to continue to just be stagnating in top 6 and never push or get close to that top 4 under Arteta, then you'd have to say he'd go. But if we're making progression, which would be to get back into the top 6, that for me is enough for him to keep his job for now. But if he wasn't in the top 6 by the end of the season, he would have to go, in my view. There's not really an argument to finish outside the top 6 3 seasons in a row. So we'll have to wait and see. Let's scroll back up. Richard Beaton says, good morning, Tom. First time I've been able to catch you live in ages. Thank you, Richard, for tuning in. Really appreciate your time as always. Fun Trick says, do you think Emile Smith-Rowe will eventually get back into the starting 11, and how? Yes, I absolutely do. I think that they'll see rotation. I think that when people get very concerned about players not getting in the lineup, they immediately think, oh no, they're going to leave. Like, why would they want to stick around if they're not getting the team? But if you're a team that's pushing for, honours and trophies and getting into the top four, which Arsenal will hope to be doing this season, look at Man City, look how many attacking options they have, look at Chelsea. I know that they're a different level to us right now, but we need to be aiming for that. So rotation will be key. Smith Rowe could come back into the team today if Ødegaard is not fit, and players will take their chance. You look at Martinelli, he's taken his chance, and we have to look at that as well and say that players have to push towards getting their places back and push to get him back in the team. He's just signed a new contract. I wouldn't worry too much. We should see plenty of change and plenty of rotation. Yes, it says Tom would play the same as the Sunderland game against Norwich. I would make a fair few changes. We did do a preview show yesterday. If you want to go and check that out on YouTube, it is was it yesterday? No, sorry, it was on Christmas Eve. We did that. I was joined by Ro here, and who was I joined? Ludwig and Zamir was who joined me. Oh, memories. It's been 2 days ago. Forgive me. But we had a really good chat about kind of who we would be using and playing and putting into the team. And I think that I put in a lot of the African Cup of Nations players like En-Nesyri, Partey, Pepe, because obviously they're not going to be available in a couple of days' time. So use them now when we give a rest to some other players. Matt says that Tommy should be rested regardless if he's available for Wolves, which is a fair point. Edwin says, hey, Tom, what is the team news for Norwich? As far as we're aware, the players that could be out are Tomiyasu, Ødegaard could both be out. Injuries to other players. Kolasinac, obviously, we know he's been injured for quite some time. Lokonga and Maitland-Niles have been back in training after suffering from illness. Lokonga was specifically because of testing positive. Pablo Mari could be back, but obviously we don't know if he would even play. I would expect there to be a few changes tonight from the Leeds game and from the Sunderland game because obviously we've got a game against Wolves in less than 48 hours, which is mad anyway. But we'll have to wait and see. Stephen says, I know I have mentioned these players before, but I really do like the Sassuolo pair, Schumacher and Berardi, I believe. Take a look. Merry Christmas. I don't know much about Schumacher. I know Berardi, unless you do mean Verardi, in which case I don't know who he is. But Berardi, he's aging a bit now as a winger. I'm not sure that he would come in and usurp Saka, a right wing. I think maybe you should target a younger profile player, but we'll have to wait and see. Marsh says, hello, Tom. Do you think all these games getting postponed could affect the Premier League's integrity? Mate, the Premier League has very little that's very little integrity at times anyway. Some of the decision making and double standards. But look, I think it's going to be a situation where they try and push through for as long as possible. But they have to take into account player safety. That's the integrity that will get questioned, is their look at player safety. We'll have to wait and see, but it's a concern, is what it is. It's a huge concern. Ifes says, Tom, what do you think of the Xmas photo from Arsenal and Aubameyang smiling next to Arteta? I've not seen that. Unless it was a separate photo, I've not actually seen it. Was it on Twitter or Instagram? Oh, I see. It's the picture on the... I'm trying to look to see if they retook the photo with all the Christmas jumpers on. My expectation is that photo was taken when they did the team photo all those months ago, and they already had those jumpers. So they took the picture back then with the jumpers on. I don't think they retook that picture again more recently. I think they would have taken that photo a long time ago. So I think there's probably, a reason why you're seeing them so happy clappy back then. Yes, it says Tony, Tom, technical ability is very good. He also athletic and tall. He's an upgrade on Lacquer in every aspect. He should be. He's also only 25 and 40 to 50, 45 million. Would you take him? I would take him if other options weren't available, but I do think there are other options like Calvert-Lewin, like Vlahovic, like En-Nesyri that I would be more tempted by. Maybe not En-Nesyri, but certainly Vlahovic and Dominic Calvert-Lewin would tempt me more than Tony. I also have a couple of concerns about how he's transitioned to the Premier League and whether or not he's the pressing style of striker that Arteta would want in his team. Whoever we get, we need to get someone who presses. That's why I like Calvert-Lewin a lot, because he's very hardworking. He presses a hell of a lot. That's why he broke into the Everton team, because of how hardworking he is. And now he's added goals to his game. So it would be the questions around whether he's a presser or not. The Onyx Lens says, what type of midfield profile do you think we should go for? A 6 or a box-to-box? I think someone who could do both you need to look at. Someone who's got the versatility and they're going to be able to play both roles is what we need. Manu says, I tuned into the Bologna game to watch Svanberg because his highlights looked great. I was more impressed by Sassuolo striker Scamacca. Fancy either of those. Again, I don't know much about Scamacca either. He's a player that I've heard of, but he's not a player that has come across my radar at all. I'm just trying to have a look and see his stats if they come up. Gianluca Scamacca. He's from Italy. How old is he? He's 22. Scored how many goals? 6 in 19 this season. Did he score in that game against Bologna? He didn't. They lost 3-0. But he has scored more recently. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 in his last 7 appearances. Scored 2 against Genoa. He's a player that's coming good, it looks like, but maybe someone that, again, Italian players don't really like to leave Italy. It's not something you see regularly happen. So maybe there's other options that Arsenal should be looking for. A says, do you ever look back on transfer windows? I believe when Emery was in charge, when AC Milan wanted to do a swap with Torreira for Kessié. I think that was a pretty loose rumor. I'm not sure how much truth there was in that. But I mean, when you look on that now and you'd say, absolutely, we should have done something like that. But I don't know how much, weight there was back then in that kind of deal. Do I look back at previous links? Absolutely. But there's no point crying over spilt milk at the end of the day. Matt Murdoch, who joins us all the way from Hell's Kitchen, says, personally, I think Scamacca will stay in Italy and move to a bigger club in Serie A. Marshall says, you need a Fabinho type. I agree. If we can get someone as good as Fabinho, fantastic. Yasir says, Tom, who would you rather have in January, Vlahovic or Tielemans? Probably Vlahovic. I feel like if you can get him done, Tielemans is someone you could get in the summer still, but if you put enough money down. So I'd probably say Vlahovic at this moment in time. Saeed says, Tom, what's your take on Nketiah staying? I assume by staying, there's 2 routes to your question. One is signing a new contract. The other is keeping him until the summer when his contract expires. If we keep until the contract expires, I imagine that'll be because we weren't able to bring in a striker and the offers simply weren't there. If they get an offer that's over £10 million, they would be mugs to really, turn that down. They could go into the market and bring someone in temporarily for the last 6 months of the season. I don't know what's going to happen with Nketiah. He's one of those that's really unpredictable to kind of guess what could happen. He could leave, could get a good bid in January. He might stay and, eke out the end of his contract and then get a good free move in the summer with decent wages and a signing on bonus. We'll have to wait and see. Patrick says, will the Spurs game be postponed? That's been the Spurs game, I think, has already been postponed. Patrick, as far as I'm aware, I thought I saw reports that it was going to be postponed. Let me have a look. It is trending on my Twitter at the moment, so I'm assuming it had been postponed. Is it not? I'm trying. It doesn't look like it is, to be fair. It says likely to be postponed after the Eagles become the latest Premier League club to have an outbreak, yet another one to be rescheduled. Contrary to reports, the line understand between Spurs and Crystal Palace will go ahead. Okay. So, and 9 hours ago, Rahman Osman, who is a writer for London World, says little update on Tottenham's Palace on Boxing Day. At the moment, the Palace still hoping game will be called off, but the Premier League want to run a test tomorrow morning to confirm the numbers before making that final call. So it looks like it could still go ahead. I thought it was off, but apparently it's still very much in the balance. If it is off, Spurs will have missed a ridiculous amount of games, like a silly amount of games. They're going to have some weeks where their games build up and build up and build up. We'll have to wait and see. MFB, what's your dream January signing? I think you have to say someone like Vlahovic would be a dream signing in January just because of the quality he could bring you, but I doubt that's going to happen. Jean, I haven't pronounced your name correctly, mate. Jean, how do you pronounce Odegaard's? It's with the little O, so... I'm gonna say Jean. I'm hoping that's right. Apologies if it's not, mate. Could it be an option to retrain Gabriel to replace Xhaka as a deep midfielder for next season. We are stronger defensively than in midfield. I think he has some of those qualities. I'm never really a big fan, John, of changing the positions of players. Ben White, Gabriel. I like them where they are. I think Arsenal need to look to sign players in positions that we need, not really aim to change, especially in defence. You can more so do it with forwards, like with wingers and strikers and wingers, attacking midfielders and eights. Like you can kind of tweak some things there. But in defence, never really a big fan of that. So that's kind of where I'm at, to be honest. Runs with Cows says, what do you think about Tyrese Campbell? It's rumoured Newcastle interested. Oh, yes. Kevin Campbell's boy. I think that he's still coming back off an injury. And I think that he's a player that needs to recover from that injury first. He needs to be proven in the Premier League before he's kind of being linked to Arsenal, but still very young, doing very good things. Maybe he'll move to Newcastle and we'll have a look what he does in the Premier League. Triple captain Martinelli for tomorrow, says Michael. I mean, I always recommend waiting and leaving your triple captain for the double game weeks, but we'll see. Jonathan says Spurs are going to play their games in hand in January after possibly making a few signings. Thoughts on that? Hey, look, it's something that I know a lot of people are talking about, that they could play all the games that have been postponed after strengthening their team, and it doesn't look great, does it? But maybe having all those games in quick succession in midweek games and will cause them more problems than it will strengthening. We'll have to wait and see. But it's a strong theory. It's certainly a theory that should concern a fair few people. Man says, how was your evening, mate? Enjoyed being with your family. Look, it was a great day, and ate a lot of food. And the diet will be starting in the new year, leading up to the wedding. Got to try and get a bit slimmer for the wedding. But it was a good day, and I hope that everyone else in the chat box did as well. We are going to wrap things up there. Do tune into the Arsenal Way. Link in the description to the channel after the game. We'll be doing a reaction after the game over on there. And then I'll have a reaction to the game on this channel at 9 p.m. tonight. So make sure that you're turning those notifications on and hitting all those relevant buttons so that that you don't miss the show. Just before we wrap up, though, Chris P, thank you so much. He says, Super Chats are back. Yeah, I turned them off. I don't know how I did that. I know that there was an issue before with like our YouTube partner, because I know the members, if you remember, you would have got an email that basically said memberships have been paused. There was an issue with the YouTube partner that got sorted out very quickly, but that turned off Super Chats and I never turned them back on until Christmas Eve. So yeah, Super Chats are back. So thank you, Chris. Happy holidays, mate. Hope you had a fantastic Christmas with the family. Awesome dedication as ever. Big up to the community too. Do you think Vlahovic is worth 80 million euros? I'm concerned about his pressing. I'm concerned about his pressing too. It's not part of his game, but it's certainly something that could be taught and trained into him. Is he worth that amount of money for a player at 21 years of age, scoring that many goals in that league with that kind of level of defensive players in Serie A? I think it's very impressive and probably worth it. He looks like a reincarnation of Haaland, the next Haaland, if you like. It would be, I think it's probably worth moving for him. So, yes, I do think it's probably worth it, Chris. But thank you for your kind donation, mate. Really appreciate that. It's very kind of you. As I said, I'll be back on the channel at 9 o'clock tonight after the game. But as I said before, you can find us on the Arsenal Way about 20 minutes or so after the final whistle. Do tune in for that. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you as it always is. And as always, up the arse.